link now to the next presentation, literacy. If I just give you a quick background on myself, I work here at College Llangeitho. I'm an essential skills, as was basic skills, tutor. I look after learners from entry 1 right through to level 3. And my other hat is looking after communication essential skills across the whole college network, again from entry 1 through to level 3. So, as part of my IV role, I became aware of the fact that different tutors were marking learners' work in different ways. And some learners are coming into contact with more than one tutor in their normal day in college. So I approached the college about developing a marking guide that would help the learners improve their literacy, but they'd have a better understanding of what the different tutors were saying. So, as I was developing this, Estin brought out their literacy strategy, and when I had a look at the FE and work-based one, there was a key thread about them looking at a marking policy, they called it. What was the centre's assessment policy? How were they marking learners' work? And this was one of the things they said they'd definitely be looking for in portfolios. They'd be looking at the grammar, spelling and punctuation of learners' work. There's lots of other things they'll be looking for with reading and complexity and thinking skills. But specifically about these skills, how are we going to support learners to improve their skills, but in a way that is contextualised across all tutors? Because when they look at portfolios, I've been telling staff they're looking specifically at the grammar, punctuation and spelling. No longer can tutors say, oh, well, I don't teach comms, I'm a motor vehicle tutor, it's not my responsibility to support their literacy. What I'm promoting within the college is that we're all responsible for supporting their literacy. So we developed a marking guide to provide continuity amongst staff, but also understanding amongst the learners, because we not only have learners that are coming into contact with more than one tutor in their course, we have many learners who are moving from course to course. They may have done construction one year and they've moved into engineering the next year. And what we want is that continuity, that the coding system we've developed for one department is the same for the other. So we've got 3 documents. One's a tutor guide to help the tutors understand how to use it, and it's an A4 side. So I could have written a book explaining each point, but it was really important that it was short and sharp for the staff to understand. There's a learner guide, which is really quite a small document that all learners should have inside their folders or their portfolios. Ideally, hopefully from September, it will be inside our student handbooks or the student diaries, so that students are aware straight away when they start college, this is the way that we're going to support you with your literacy. There's also a classroom poster, which I'll show you what we've got so far, but it's not been finalised. It's still got to go for final checks before we put it up. Because God forbid that my poster would have any spelling or punctuation. And I've already found punctuation missing, so I could possibly send that to print. But when I looked at the literacy strategy that Estin had brought out, these were the types of comments that were coming out of this strategy. The document, bearing in mind it's been written for inspectors, it was saying how well are the providers marking an assessment policy helping learners? How well are tutors marking your work? That was in the section that was going to look at when the inspectors interview the learners. Do they correct spellings and punctuation for you and explain where you've gone wrong? Now, when I do this presentation to staff, I've underlined do they correct spellings and punctuation, because I'm advising staff not to be seen to be correcting spelling and punctuation throughout the learner's journey with us, because I think Estin would be looking at us showing some hand-holding to begin with perhaps, but then stepping away, that the learners are becoming more autonomous in correcting their errors themselves. Is there a common marking policy? Came up again, not only within but between subjects, looking at grammar, punctuation and spelling. So, this is the last bit just to show you each document. I'm going to show you the learner cards first. Sorry, it takes a second to open. And I have to say, I worked with Kerry Davis from Coleg Sir Gar. She told me that she was developing one for colleague Seaman. And I asked if I could have a look at hers, and I'd send her what I'd done. And between us, we came up with the best model we felt would work. And we know we're probably not hitting every literacy issue. We dealt with the ones we felt were most important. And these cards, there's 4 on one A4 piece. And if I just scroll down very quickly, they're bilingual. So the idea is when they print, they're Welsh on one side, English on the other. There was big debates within the college actually as to, and if I just do it like that, so you can sort of see half and half, as to the translation of the codes, because some staff felt the codes should remain the same in whatever language it was. So P would be punctuation, but it would still be P for Atal Nodi. But we made the decision to keep it separate because for the learners who are submitting work through the medium of Welsh, they'd be being assessed and marked through the medium of Welsh. So it was appropriate that their feedback was in Welsh. So it's things like, if they've made a spelling mistake, what we're encouraging the tutors to do is put SP in the margin on that line, and initially in the year, they would maybe underline the actual word, and if the learner needs it, they'd support them to then correct the word. As time would move on, because as we know, Estin will be asking to see learners' portfolios and looking through them for evidence that the learners are improving on the issues that we've addressed. They might put SP but not underline it, so they've got to find that error in the work themselves. We had sort of generic ones like you would use for start a new paragraph or word missing. And what's been a key thread that's come out with the staff that we've delivered this to is that yet they say, yes, I was already using that little toolbar for where the word was missing, but what the staff member was doing was actually putting the word in that should be there. And so what they're taking away from these sessions is they're going to stop doing that, because 99% of the time, the learners, when you tell them you've missed a word there, they'll find it, they'll know which word to put in. So we're already moving stuff away from being too helpful. Something colleagues here were quite adamant they wanted, and I understand why. They wanted some positivity in the marking guide, so that it wasn't just a page of this is what's wrong with your work. So there are opportunities for staff to be able to tick a section that's been done particularly well. And because tutors are marking the learner's work for its content as well as for its grammar, punctuation and spelling, what we're saying these ticks would be used for is to comment on a learner who's improved in something from a literacy point of view. For example, they're habitually, a learner's been using a small W for the word Welsh, and then in one assignment they put a capital W. That would be an opportunity for right by the word Welsh to give them a tick to say, right, we've cracked that now, or something similar. They're not ticks to be mixed up with the content of the work. The tutor guide has exactly the same codes on, but it has more information about what I'm thinking when I've suggested something. For example, capital letter. So we're looking for things like starts of sentences, personal pronouns, because with the best will in the world, some staff might not know them all themselves, or they might forget. Things like WW for wrong word. What am I talking about there? Well, I'm meaning where they've used slang, or they've used text talk, or they've used here instead of here. There was a big debate as to whether that was a spelling mistake or not, but we decided it should be put as wrong word because the word is spelt correctly, just in the wrong context. So there's quite a debate about that. So that's a sort of an explanation for staff. Again, double-sided, so it can be printed bilingually. The last one is the class poster. And this is going through some debate at the minute, actually, because when I sent it to marketing for them to jazz it up for me, I sent them an English version and a Welsh version. And when they returned it, they sent it back to me bilingually. And it's very interesting that there's about a 50-50 split among staff who've seen it so far. So I really value feedback on it, in the respect that some staff are saying it's confusing having the two codes right next to each other. There's too much information on the poster, is something else staff have said to me. Because there's too much writing on there. It needs to be separate. Interestingly, our colleagues at Coleg Meirion Dwyfor, who are obviously working predominantly through the medium of Welsh, They've asked learners what they think of it, and they like it like this. So it's something we're going to have to ask questions of learners, because it's not for the staff this is a poster that would go in every classroom right around the college. It's for the learners, and it's what's most accessible to them. So it's going to be conversations we'll have with learners on sites like Rose and Real, where the learners are working predominantly through the medium of English as to what they think. But those are the three documents we've produced. I know that colleagues Cigar are running their system. We've got one. Colleague D-Side have set up a similar type of system, because it's clearly something that Eston are going to be looking at. What's interesting, from the presentations that I've been doing, there's been a bit of discussion about whether, and it's sort of a final thought I'll leave with, whether a system like this should exist across Wales from primary through to HE, so that a learner's whole journey through their educational life, if you like, they understand that P means punctuation if they're having their work corrected. Whether they move from Rose-on-Sea to live in Newport, P will still mean punctuation. So it's, or whatever system would be developed. But that's what staff have been raising as a point to me as to whether this is something that could be developed nationally. Because lots of us are having to develop it, not as a knee-jerk reaction to Eston, but in order to meet, to tick a box and say, yes, we are supporting learners' literacy, and this is a way we're doing it. There we go.